The Pantheon, the Colosseum, the Hoplites, and the Legionaries all come to mind when speaking of the classical Greeks and the ancient Romans. However, with such powerful governments and such powerful cultures, why did they not clash more? Why didn't the Greeks more actively oppose the Romans, as they are famous for, against the Persians? Well, I'm Shieldbro6 for the History Armada, and today we're going to delve into that question. And we're going to analyze a couple different points about why the Greeks did not put up such a stiff resistance as they are famous for, and some of the contributing factors to their subjugation by the ancient Romans. So come with me as we unlock this plethora of knowledge. Speaking of plethora, first we have Humble Bundle. So we have a partnership with Humble Bundle, if you did not already know, and the Humble community has contributed over $200 million to charity since their establishment in 2010, making an amazing difference to causes all over the world. And if you want to join that Humble community and make a difference yourself, you can do so with the link in the description of the video, where you can find great deals on things such as ebooks, video games, and other great deals, all while giving to charity and supporting me. So if you like to do so and you'd like to check it out, follow my Humble Bundle partnership link in the description of the video. But now, back to ancient Greece. The Romans were treating the Greek cities quite well, and that's one of the major reasons why the Greeks did not put up a quite stiff resistance. What the Greeks had disliked about the Persian Empire is not only did it put the Greek cities in Anatolia under the rule of a satrapy, but they were also indirectly under the control of the King of Kings. But not only this, also the local governments were replaced by a tyrant, or at the best of times, a pro-Persian oligarchy. And that did not sit well with the ancient Greeks. They had a very stalwart idea of what it was to be Greek and how Greek life should be lived. They had this idea of strong law, honor, and democracy. So Herodotus reports, and this is the first citation in the description of the video, that this is what the Spartan exile king Anabasis told Xerxes when asked to give his insight about the stalwart description and defense by the Greeks. "O king," said Anabasis, "seeing that you bid me all means speak the whole truth, and say that which you shall not afterwards prove to be false. Here in Hellas, poverty is ever native to the soil, but courage comes of their own seeking, the fruit of wisdom and strong law. By use of courage, Hellas defends herself from poverty and tyranny." So you can see here, he's saying, we don't stand for tyrants, and because of that, and through the use of wisdom and strong law, we avoid poverty. So they did not like the idea of being controlled by the pro-Persians or by that direct tyrant rule, because it brought on inequality and poverty. So whereas the Persians were ruling with the strong fish, the Romans were actually treating the Greek cities that submitted very well and did not wholeheartedly or completely change or control the way of life there. On top of that, they had to pay taxes, and the Greeks did not like taxes as a concept, especially in the form of a tribute to a foreign occupying force. I mean, who does? But the Greeks are notorious about their defiance to taxes. There were several revolts against the Persian Empire. Most notably is the example is the Ionian Revolt. But you also have to bear in mind that what happened when the Greeks were liberated from the Greek cities of this very area. You can see there on the left, you can see some of the famous cities of this area, and on the right is the one we are going to be talking about in particular. This is citation 2 in the description of the video. Quote, "On the 4th day, Alexander the Great arrived at Ephesus," which you can see on the map on the left of your screen there, "where he recalled from exile all the Greek men who had been banished from the city on account of their adherence to him. And having broken up the oligarchy, he established a democratical form of government there. He also ordered the Ephesians to contribute to Artemis all the tribute which they were in the habit of paying to the Persians. When the people of Ephesus were relieved of their dread of the oligarchs, they rushed headlong to kill the men who had brought Memnon into their city." End quote. So they were bridled with these heavy taxes that must be paid to the oligarchy and to the Persians. So much so that we saw this example that once liberated by Alexander the Great, they rushed headlong to kill the men who had helped establish this oligarchy. And the Romans, they did not require such a heavy tax. And they saw this especially as a good thing, especially when giving it to a foreign power. So the Romans were doing this quite diplomatically and avoiding some of these major problems that had been faced by foreign powers before in Greece. So whereas the Romans were treating those who joined them peacefully very, very well, there were many Greek cities in Italy already. And by the time the Romans arrived in Greece proper, the Greeks of Italy had been under Roman rule for several decades at this point. And thus, Greeks already knew how good Roman rule could be. And they preferred that from the rule of another Greek city, as we have ancient sources saying as such. This is Citation 3, with Apion reporting, quote, "The Roman people and Senate, and Flaminius, their general, have vanquished the Macedonians, and Philip," highlighted there in the darker red, their king, "ordering that Greece shall be free from foreign garrisons, not subject to tribute, and shall live under her own customs and laws." So while they were technically subjugated, they were not going to be garrisoned, no tribute, and there would be no changing the laws. So really, it was only a changing of, well, managerial status, for instance. And we see this as the Greeks loved this idea because this is a very vital point. Before the Greco-Persian Wars, all three Greek city-states were independent. After the Greco-Persian Wars, with the Delian League and the Peloponnesian War and the Corinthian War, the rise of Macedon, etc., Greek city-states had been tired of having one great powerful state, whether it was Sparta, Athens, Macedon, Thebes, whoever, as overlord. This was a great pain to the Greek city-states. They saw this as a great dishonor and they wanted it to change. So, that being said, they would often welcome a foreign invader that would help them get rid of that immediate rival Greek city-state. So, for instance, when the Romans and Flaminius came in and rid them of that ruling Macedon overlord, they saw them as kind of conquering heroes. And that is one of the most important, if not the most important, cultural point as to why they did not reject or oppose that Roman rule. But lastly, there is another very important factor, and that is numbers. If you check the famous battles, the Greeks failed to gather a large fighting force against the Romans at any point. At the final decisive battle of Corinth in 146 BCE, which you can see depicted here in artwork, the Achaeans only managed to gather a bit more than 14,000 soldiers, although they were the rulers of pretty much the entire Peloponnese area at this time. Against the Persians, the Spartans alone had sent 10,000 hoplites at Plataea, among almost 39,000 hoplites, not counting the light infantry. The Peloponnesus, although not united against Persia, had sent several times more soldiers to fight the Persian invasion than they had sent to fight the much closer Romans 3 centuries later. And that's because there were more people in Greece during the 5th century BCE than there were in this time period of the 2nd BCE. Everybody knows how Sparta's population had dropped because of wars, but at the same time it was happening throughout Greece. Why is this? Why were the Greek numbers dropping so rapidly? Because of a man named Alexander. Alexander the Great. This guy, if you haven't heard of him, really liked building Greek city-states and Greek cities in his empire. And Alexander the Great conquered an enormous area, as you can see here in the light peach area, Alexander's empire. And you can also see with the colored areas and the arrows, the different routes that were taken throughout the empire. He founded more than 20 cities, with the most prominent being the city of Alexandria in Egypt, which you can see bottom left. Alexander's settlement of Greek colonists and the resulting spread of Greek culture led to the overwhelming dominance of Hellenistic civilization and influence as far east as the Indian subcontinent. However, By the 5th century, or the 2nd century, sorry, the Greeks were so spread thin that it had left Greece very much underpopulated. And with city-states having fewer and fewer citizens, they just couldn't raise big armies to resist effectively. Large Hellenistic kingdoms had manpower and money to raise mercenaries instead, but these smaller city-states like Greece proper, during the Hellenistic age, they just could not effectively resist the Romans, nor did they really want to, as opposed to the Persian invasion, due to the benefits and the major points I have stated earlier. So, really in summary, we see a couple major reasons. 1, the Romans ruled well with no changing of government head or heavy taxes. 2, they also did not replace any of the culture or laws or try to garrison. 3, they had helped get rid of the Macedonian overlord. And finally 4, Greece was severely underpopulated due to the rapid expansion and colonization during Alexander's time. So, that is why, in conclusion, the ancient Greeks did not oppose the Romans so stalwartly as they are famous for. That's why they did not put up such a resistance. I will have 3 citations, in the description of the video so you can see it for yourself. And I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I thought this was very interesting because the Greeks are known for democracy, independence, and of course fighting the Persians. So I found it very curious as to why they would not do the same against the invading Romans. But now you can see why they had the benefit not to. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button for me. It helps me get my content out there. If you ever have a comment, suggestion, concern, or if I get something wrong, go ahead and put that in the comment section for me. I do read all of the comments. Furthermore, if you want to support me even further, check out the links in the description of the video, such as the Humble Bundle I mentioned earlier, the Discord, and the Patreon. Of course, there's also my merch. But that is it for today. As always, I am Shieldbro6 for the History Armada. I hope you learned something about the ancient Greeks, and I hope you enjoyed. That's it for today, and I'll see you guys for your next weekly dose of history. Bye for now.